Paul had no regrets in life. Notice he writes, I fought the good fight. I finished the course. I kept the faith. In other words, everything God had called Paul to do, he did. He had no regrets, no sense of unfulfillment or incompleteness. He had lived life to its fullest. And my question for you today is, if this were your last year, would you be able to say the same thing? Are there things that remain left in life to do? Now, of course, there are for all of us. I mean, things we would like to do, places we would like to go. But I mean, I'm talking about important things now, things that you feel God has called you to do that you have not yet done. Maybe there are people you feel you need to forgive. There are things you need to stop doing that you know are unproductive, things you need to start doing that would help you a great deal. Paul knew the time was close. And now to sort of describe how he lived in this point of his life, he uses three pictures to describe what it's like to live as a believer, realizing that any year could be your last. He likened himself to a fighter, a runner, and a soldier. And we should do the same. Number one, Paul said he was like a fighter. Verse 7, I have fought the good fight. Fought the good fight. Now, have you ever been in a real fight? I don't mean like the ones you see in the movies where it's the barroom brawl in the Western, and when a person gets punched in the face, they smile and faint and it looks like fun or something. Have you ever been hit in the face? Well, it hurts. And the fight that Paul is describing here is not a gentleman's boxing match where the bell rings and we go to our corner and we have the guard on our teeth and our gloves on. No, this is a little bit more like ultimate fighting or mixed martial arts. We're talking bare fists. We're talking a fight to the death potentially. This is the idea that Paul is conveying. The Christian life is a conflict. And this surprises some people. They think once they become Christians that everything's going to be sweet and nice and easy. Au contraire. Little French there. It's the very opposite. You see, now that you've entered into this new relationship with God, you're going to discover your adversary, the devil, is going to try to undermine you and stop you. And so you enter into a fight. Ephesians 6:12, describing this from a modern translation, says this. This is no afternoon athletic contest that we'll walk away from and forget about in a couple of hours. This is for keeps. A life or death fight to the finish against the devil and his angels. It's a spiritual battle, and thus we need to use spiritual weapons. So Paul said, I fought the good fight. And all of us fight it every day. How are you doing in that fight? Are you winning or losing? Number two, Paul also compared himself to being a runner in a race. Verse 7, he says, I have finished the race. And there were numerous hurdles and obstacles in Paul's life he had to deal with, ranging from persecution and even having to cope with his own thorn in the flesh. The word that Paul uses here for race describes a race with obstacles in it. So it's not like the race we would see in the Olympics, where you run a certain distance and whoever runs the fastest wins. It's more like getting through an obstacle course. That's what Paul is describing. And he is saying that he has run that race. He has completed that race. And we're in the race of life. And all of us should run to win. I don't know about you, but when I was in school, I was in track and field, and I entered a lot of races, and I don't think I ever won one. I can't remember one I won. In fact, I don't even think I got second or third. I won a lot of these honorable mention ribbons. As I recall, they were purple in color. So on my wall, all these purple ribbons, honorable mention, which basically means you showed up. Or even worse, we acknowledge that you do exist, and that's the extent of it. You know, no first place ribbons, no trophies for me. Well, we're running a race, and we should run to win. Don't run to get second or third place. You run to win. You run to score. In fact, that's what Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 9. Everyone runs, but only one wins the prize, so run to win. All athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize. So run with every purpose run with purpose in every step. So that's the idea that's being conveyed. Now, we're going to get a reward that's worthwhile. You look at some of the rewards, or awards, I should say, that people win. I have a friend who has won the Iron Man, and that's a very hard competition that goes on for hours. And I look at the medal, I said, this is all they gave you? I mean, I've never won anything like that. So I guess that's what it represents. He's an Iron Man, I'm an ironing man, but still, you win these little awards. They're not worth much, but we're running for an eternal reward that God will give us in that final day. And finally, Paul says that he is a soldier in verse 7. He says, I have kept the faith. The word that he uses here for kept carries the meaning of having guarded the faith as an armed soldier would guard his post against enemy attack. Paul is saying that he never strayed from the truth of God's word, and he lived it out. So let me ask you, if this were your last year, would you be able to say the same thing that Paul said? Have you been winning in this fight and struggle against Satan and personal sin? Have you kept up the pace in the race of life, or have you slowed down? Have you guarded and kept your faith in the way you live and tell others? If you have, here's the promise that you have from the Lord. Verse 8, Paul says, finally, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me in that day, and not to me only, but to all who have loved his appearing. There is a reward waiting.